In this video, we're going to show you how to replace your transmission conductor plate located inside your transmission pan. This is going to be specific for a Chrysler 300. This is for a transmission ID W5A580, also known as the NAG transmission. Now right here you're going to find your wire harness going into the front side of your transmission. In this off-white or white colored collar, you want to go ahead and grab this little tab here and want to rotate this counterclockwise to unlock it, and it actually unscrews the harness and will pop that out. Gently grab that unit and you can pull this out of the switch, and that is your electrical connector. Just go ahead and pop that up and set that aside. Inside the center here, there's going to be a 7mm screw. Before we go and loosen that, you want to go ahead and get a catch can or a bucket underneath, because once we loosen that, transmission fluid will probably come out and run down. You want to go ahead and protect you and the floor. We're going to use our 7mm deep socket in small extension on our 1/4" drive ratchet. And you want to go ahead and loosen and remove that screw. It's right in the very center. And once that's loose, you should be able to just pop that ratchet off and spin that extension and socket, and we're going to loosen that. Now it's a capture screw, so it will not fall out. It's going to remain inside that. You want to go ahead and grab this unit and gently pull it outward. And there is that transmission fluid. You're going to let that drain for a moment. There's that screw inside I was talking about, that 7mm screw we had to loosen. You also want to pay attention on this unit here. There should be 2 O-rings. There's 1 O-ring on the bottom side right here. And there should be 1 on the upper section here. It's actually stuck in our transmission up top here. And then we have the orange band or O-ring right up inside the transmission here. We want to go ahead and remove that. Now we're just going to use our small pick and just gently grab that and pull that out. In order to access all the bolts on our transmission pan, we need to remove our transmission support or cross member here. There's going to be a total of 6 bolts. 2 on each side and then 2 in the middle for the transmission itself. We have our screw jack here on the tail end of our transmission to support the transmission. Let's go ahead and remove these 2 center bolts using our 15mm sockets. Using our 13mm socket, let's go ahead, loosen and remove the 4 bolts holding the cross member. On your transmission pan, there's going to be 6 T30s Torx screws. There's 2 in the front, 2 in the middle, 2 in the back. This is filled with transmission fluid. What we're going to do, loosen and remove the 2 front ones first. Now you definitely want to have a catch can underneath here. What's going to happen is we loosen these 2 middle ones and loosen the back ones. The pan should start to come down on the front and transmission fluid will start to drain out of this here. It's going to be a slow, controlled drain into our drain bucket. So at this point here, as we start to loosen our screws here, the front of the pan will start to come down. We're starting to slowly drain here. Okay, let's go ahead and tip that pan slowly. With most of that fluid drained out, I'm going to go ahead, push up on this pan. I'm going to remove the last bolt in the back corner here. And then I'm going to go ahead and lower this pan down. And with the pan empty, I'm just going to go ahead and remove that and set it aside. We now want to go ahead and remove our transmission filter right here. It's simply pressed up into the valve body here, and there's a little tab in the back here that kind of lines it up. It's a alignment pin. So gently going to grab this here, pop that down, empty that filter. Now on our valve body, there's going to be 10 T30s torque screws you need to loosen and remove. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 4 on the back, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go ahead and loosen and remove those. When those screws are loose and out, we'll be able to drop down that valve body. I'm going to go ahead and just break these loose for now. Be careful lowering the valve body. Go ahead and let that drain a little bit more. And then we'll go ahead and put it on our bench top. Now with our valve body on the bench, we want to go ahead and remove this cover here and this cover here. Simply going to pinch and flex this plastic right here. And pop that off, set that aside. I'm going to do the same for this one here. Now on the top of our valve body here, there's going to be 6 solenoids. There's 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. And in the very center, there is a T30 Torx bit. I'm going to go ahead and start the one closest to us here. I want to go ahead and loosen this. Now it does take a little bit of pressure to go ahead and loosen these here. I'm going to go ahead and spin that screw out of the middle here. It's a long bolt right there. Lift up on this retaining bracket. We're just going to set that down exactly how it came off. I'm going to pull up on our solenoid here. It's held in with an O-ring. Do the same on this one here. Let's give it a little wiggle. Go ahead and lift up that solenoid and set that beside it. Now as we disassemble this, we're going to position everything exactly how it came out. So we can just go ahead and reinstall the components again once we have the new component installed. Going to remove that screw and bracket. Do the same here. I'm going to do the same thing with these solenoids. Going to pull them up, dislodge them. Paper towel helps just to try and help you get some grip on there. All right, so we have our conductor plate off here. The only thing that gives you a little bit of a hard time is there's a little post right here. which is closest to you. It's just to the right of where the bolt would go. There's a post here, and it comes out on the bottom. Once you work that out, you can go ahead and set that aside. You're going to take your conductor plate. And bring this down. Go ahead and line that up. Gently press that down. You hear that snapping noise is actually a pin, a guide pin for the front side here, right where the connector goes to. And then there's one that's on the opposite side over here. You want to go ahead and get that to pop into place. Now our conductor plate is installed. Let's go ahead and install our solenoids now. I'm just going to do it in the reverse fashion as we removed. I'll go ahead and press that down. When you're installing the solenoids, you can feel them drop into place. Just push them down. You feel them lock in. Go ahead and install your brackets here. I'm just going to get all these started by hand first. You can finish snugging those down with your ratchet if you want. They thread in pretty easy, so I'm going to go ahead and run them right all the way down by hand, and then we'll finish tightening them with the ratchet. Now you want to make sure that these are snug. Once that bolt bottoms out, give it about a quarter turn. Bolt bottoms out, quarter turn. Bolt bottoms out. Quarter turn. Now that we have all of our brackets installed, I want to go ahead and just do a visual inspection, make sure everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and install our plastic covers here. Line those up, pop it into place. This little hole right here, could line that up. Press it down gently and it'll snap into place. We're ready for installation. We're going to go ahead and remove our gasket off of our pan. This is a reusable gasket and ours is in excellent condition, so we're just going to reuse that. What you want to pay attention to is right here, this component. This is a magnet. Go ahead and peel that out. What you want to do is you're going to want to clean that as best possible. You can use a solvent. Go ahead and blast that out, as well as the inside of the pan. And just set that magnet aside. And then use some towels here, wipe out the pan. Now if you're doing this at home, we would recommend that you get a new filter. You can get locally probably. Make sure your pan is clean. Make sure that our gasket is clean, and then we're going to go ahead and reinstall that gasket. That simply presses onto the outer lip of that pan. Go ahead and throw that magnet back in there. You're all set with the pan. So at this point, what we want to do is just give the transmission a good wipe down. I want to make sure that the surface of the transmission is clean before we install that pan. I also want to go ahead and just do a visual inspection, make sure everything is good. I'm going to go ahead and get our valve body lined up and popped in. We'll get that secured. So let's go ahead and get that started. Let's go ahead and line up our valve body here. Now there are two things you need to pay attention to when installing the valve body. I'm going to show you that in just a moment once I get these two bolts in. So I'm not going to tighten this all the way down. I just want to get a front bolt in and a rear bolt in to hold the valve body in place. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the bolts started by hand. The important part when you're installing your valve body, two things. This little spring-loaded arm right here needs to fit in the notch and the furthest point back. The second thing you may need to pay attention to is on the back side, there's an off-white nylon component that has a little notch in it. There is a metal rod that needs to go into that notch. It does float freely before it is installed into the transmission, so you want to make sure that that's slid back and that little metal rod up in there fits inside of the groove of the nylon component. So two things, nylon component and this little spring-loaded unit and the furthest back notch. Snug down the bolts for your valve body. Make sure you get all 10. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snug these down right now, and then when I come back, I'm going to torque those down next. Let's go ahead and torque down our 10 Torx bolts here to 71 inch-pounds. Now we're going to go ahead and install our filter. If you have a new filter, you want to go ahead and make sure you get some transmission fluid on this O-ring here. It's going to help us pop up into place. This also has a little tab on here. It's going to help line up with the little tab on the valve body itself. So I'm going to go ahead, line this up, pop that in. Now to put some solvent on a towel here, I want to go ahead and wipe down the surface where your pan gasket is going to come in contact. I want to make sure that's nice and clean. Once that's clean, we're going to go ahead and raise our pan up into place. I'm going to go ahead and start to install a couple of our bolts and clamps here. What I'll do is I'll probably get this corner here and the opposite back corner clamp in, and then we'll finish putting the rest of them in from there. Now that we have all of our bolts started by hand, I'm just going to go ahead and run all of these in and just snug them down. Now we're going to go ahead and torque down our pan bolts to 71 inch-pounds. And we're going to do this for all 6. I'm going to go ahead and install our transmission connector right here. Now there's going to be 2 O-rings. I want to pay attention to those there. The other thing you want to pay attention to is on the back side here, there are notches. These are keys that actually have to fit into tabs that are inside the transmission. Our locking collar here rotates. And what you want to do is you want to have that turned out, because when you install this, we're going to be turning this clockwise to lock this into place. Okay, so turn that down. Before we install this here, we're going to take a little bit of transmission fluid and we're going to put that on the O-ring to help this seat in on both of these O-rings. It's going to help it slide in a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and line this up. Now if you slide that around a little bit, you're going to feel those tabs. You feel those tabs fall into place. At this point here, we're going to use our 7mm socket. Go to that center bolt. See if we can get that to catch. Just going to wipe this down. All right, we have that pushed in. And what we're doing is we're pushing in that unit so that those O-rings are both installed. We're testing our lock collar. We're not quite far enough in yet. Right. Both O-rings are inside the transmission. We're now installing the center 7mm bolt here. We don't want to over tighten that. We just want to make sure that it's snug. And now we're going to go ahead and torque that down. You want to go ahead and make sure that you torque down this center screw to 22 inch-pounds. If you over tighten it, you can crack this connector and it can be stuck in the transmission, causing more issues. So torque it to 22. So make sure that your lock tab is all the way down. Our connector is also keyed, so that should line up. And just kind of rotate that while pushing in, and it'll pop into place. Once that pops in, go ahead and rotate your lock up and it should suck the connector in and lock it into place. Push it up and you'll feel it snap into place. Let's go ahead and install our cross member here for a transmission. Now what I'm going to do is just hold this up into place, and I'm going to get the 2 bolts started for the support here into the transmission mount. And just kind of zip those in a few threads by hand, and then we can go ahead and let that go. That'll hold it in place. I'm going to go ahead and install the other bolts into the body of the vehicle. I'm going to follow up with tightening down our bracket bolts. With those tight, we can go ahead and lower down our transmission jack. At this point here, you want to come on underneath your hood. On the passenger rear side of that motor, you're going to find your transmission fill tube right here. Go ahead and pop this off. This is a cap only. Go ahead and set that aside. You want to grab a clean funnel. One will fit down inside there. And according to manufacturer specifications, it's going to require roughly about 5.3 quarts of transmission fluid to fill this. So let's go ahead and add our transmission fluid. And what we're going to do is we're going to fill using 5 quarts, and then we're going to go ahead and check it from there. Now once we put in our 5 quarts, go ahead and grab that funnel, pop that out, set that aside. Next, we're going to go ahead and put our cap in, twist that in. Next thing you want to do, hop into the vehicle. You want to go ahead and start up the vehicle. You want to go ahead and use that selector, go from park, reverse, and down into drive, and go through the gears. You want to go ahead and do that several times, maybe 4 to 5 times back and forth. At that point there, put the vehicle in park, let the engine warm up with that transmission fluid. Then at that point there, we'll start our process of checking the fluid level. Now the engine and transmission warmed up, we're going to go ahead and remove that cap. And we're going to use our level tester right here. This has a graph on it, and it goes anywhere from 20 all the way up to 120, and these are going to give you certain levels on the fluid. We need to be roughly about that 75 mark. So at this point here, we're going to go ahead and install this tool. The end of this is going to bottom out on the bottom of the transmission pan. When we pull it out, we're going to go ahead and check for that level. If we're low, we're going to add fluid. Hopefully we're not going to be high, but at that point there, we should be close to that 75 mark on that dipstick. Let's go ahead and install this here. And all right about there. It feels like it's bottoming out, so go ahead and pull this out. Go ahead and check that level. And we are right about that 75 mark on that dipstick, so we are good. I'm going to wipe off our tool and install our cap.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.